Welcome back. Today, we dive into a sovereign citizen courtroom moment that plays out like a slow-moving train wreck. Reginald Ray Linton walks into Judge Perkins' courtroom, armed with fantasy documents, imaginary authority, and an absolute rejection of legal reality. What should have been a 5-minute arraignment turns into a 20-minute lecture on sovereign nonsense. Judge Perkins, a fan favorite, handles the situation with patience, sarcasm, and controlled disbelief. Right away, Linton refuses to engage with the court, rejecting contracts and procedures as if he's shopping at a medieval marketplace. He starts objecting before the judge even finishes the basic formalities, trying to derail the process with pseudo-legal rambling. The charges are serious: entering a dwelling without permission and possession of cocaine. But Linton thinks he's above it all, acting like laws only apply to others. Judge Perkins keeps it professional, while clearly acknowledging the absurdity of what's unfolding. This isn't a hearing anymore, it's a crash course in what happens when reality meets delusion. Buckle in, because this one's full of contradictions, confusion, and comedic logic. We learn early on that the charges against Linton include illegal entry and drug possession, common themes in sovereign citizen playbooks. These individuals often claim they have the right to occupy any house they want if no one's actively living there. But real-world laws don't work like that, especially not in Detroit. Judge Perkins clearly outlines each ticket and citation, giving Linton more clarity than he deserves. Possession of crack cocaine is no minor issue, but Linton seems more interested in legal theater than criminal accountability. Judge Perkins proceeds with a $0 personal bond, maintaining due process even while facing pure legal fiction. Linton refuses counsel, rejecting all assistance from the court like it's part of a trap. This is classic sovereign behavior: denial of jurisdiction, refusal of representation, and reliance on magical thinking. Linton treats the court as an illegitimate force, which is ironic considering he's sitting in it. And while the judge calmly proceeds, we can already see the frustration beginning to build. There's no shouting yet, just a courtroom slowly turning into a debate hall of nonsense. Now the fun begins, as Linton refuses to state his name for the record, claiming he's only there as a mind, meeting another mind. He speaks in metaphors and confusion, presenting himself like a philosopher trapped in a legal system he doesn't believe in. Judge Perkins tries to maintain order, but Linton's determined to monologue. He references things like corpus delicti, infringements, and federal corporate intelligence, none of which apply to this basic arraignment. What's worse is that he believes these words carry authority. Linton claims his documents speak for themselves, which they unfortunately do loudly and without making any sense. The judge reads them and admits they are time-consuming, contradictory, and often cite rules that actually disprove Linton's position. It's legal performance art at this point. The defendant wants all the protections of the law while denying the law itself, and the courtroom becomes a frustrating echo chamber where truth struggles to compete with self-invented jargon. Judge Perkins digs into Linton's evidence, pointing out the contradictions that are impossible to ignore. Linton claims the laws of Michigan and Detroit don't apply to him because of his status as a sovereign. But he also cites Michigan Court Rule 2.02b, which acknowledges those very laws. It's like trying to prove gravity doesn't exist while quoting Newton. The judge patiently explains that referencing state law to deny state law is not only contradictory, it's legally meaningless. Linton wants the benefits of law, but none of the accountability. This is the sovereign citizen paradox. They cherry-pick law like it's a buffet. Perkins makes it crystal clear, citing legal rules that confirm court jurisdiction, does not support the claim that jurisdiction doesn't exist. It's such an airtight takedown that even Linton starts to backpedal slightly. But true to form, he quickly pivots to the next incoherent legal theory instead of acknowledging the problem. It's a sovereign survival tactic. When cornered, change the subject. despite Linton's nonsense. Judge Perkins finds a potential valid point in one of his claims. Linton argues that he was invited into the house, which, if true, could affect the outcome of the illegal entry charge. Judge Perkins acknowledges that such a claim, if verified, could make the case more complicated. He even admits it looks like Linton made a halfway reasonable argument in that one part. But the crack cocaine charge remains unresolved, and there's no clarity as to whether actual evidence backs any of this. The judge is giving Linton more benefit of the doubt than most would. He doesn't dismiss him as a total crank. Instead, he tries to see if there's any thread of truth worth examining. But the minute that door opens, Linton veers off topic again and starts diving into sovereign theory. Any potential advantage he had is buried beneath a fresh pile of irrelevant paperwork. One step forward, 10 steps into delusion. Linton introduces Exhibit 1, his authenticated birth certificate, calling it proof of expatriation. This is a common sovereign tactic, pretending they've renounced citizenship by sending forms to themselves. The judge asks him to explain what expatriation means. And Linton confidently gives a definition that's completely incorrect. He claims it gives him control over his estate, as if he's playing a board game rather than facing real charges. In truth, expatriation requires formal steps through U.S. embassies and State Department approval, none of which Linton has followed. The judge doesn't even argue. He just explains the real process with an air of tired disbelief. This entire discussion shows how deep Linton is in the sovereign rabbit hole. He's built an imaginary legal fortress with zero foundation, and when confronted with real definitions and procedures, he simply doubles down. It's not logic. He's after its validation for a fantasy. Things spiral further when Linton presents a document showing that he conveyed his estate from one version of himself to another. He claims he transferred ownership from Reginald Ray Linton estate to Reginald Linton L., a sovereign alias. Judge Perkins tries to understand if Linton is saying he transferred a home deed or simply rebranded himself. It's legal cosplay at its finest, two versions of the same person exchanging imaginary rights in a document filed with the Register of Deeds. The judge reads the form out loud, trying to give it a fair read, but nothing adds up. Linton seems to think this maneuver exempts him from housing laws, but paperwork doesn't change criminal responsibility. If you're caught trespassing and with cocaine, no amount of alias switching is going to erase that. Linton's playing legal peekaboo with the court, but the judge sees right through it, and he still patiently tries to clarify what Linton is even claiming, which is no easy task. Clip 7. Just when it couldn't get weirder, Linton brings up a world passport issued by something called the Government of World Citizens. Judge Perkins admits he looked it up and found out what we all expected. It's not a real thing. The issuing organization itself admits its documents are only valid if accepted by other authorities. And surprise, the U.S. government is not one of them. The judge calmly but firmly calls out the absurdity of relying on unofficial fantasy documents to navigate a real courtroom. It's like trying to board a plane with a Monopoly get-out-of-jail-free card. Linton tries to say he used it at the federal building, but that claim only raises more questions. The courtroom is no place for cosplay governance, and Judge Perkins draws a clear line between imaginary rights and legal authority. Linton's dream of being a stateless citizen just hit a bureaucratic wall. Linton now pivots to showing letters, seals, and documentation he believes removes all liability and corporate registration under his name. He believes a diligent search proves no government entity has legal standing over him, but none of it changes the fact that he was arrested inside someone's home with alleged narcotics. The judge listens, reads, and even explains the flaws without outright ridicule. His tone is thick with disbelief. At this point, Perkins has given Linton every opportunity to say something useful or relevant, but all Linton provides is more detours into fake legal systems. The reality is simple. This is a criminal proceeding, not a fantasy court of magical sovereignty. The judge continues to handle the situation with grace, but you can feel the exhaustion building behind his words. Eventually, the legal system must draw a line and Judge Perkins is just about there.